A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a significant legal battle, NPR, alongside 3 Colorado public radio stations, has filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration, challenging an executive order that aims to cut funding for public media. The lawsuit, filed in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, contests President Trump's directive issued on May 1st, which ordered the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, CPB, to halt funding for NPR and PBS. The executive order claims that both organizations are biased and misinform taxpayers, but NPR argues that this move is a blatant attack on press freedom. NPR President and CEO Catherine Marr stated, "The executive order is a clear violation of the Constitution and the First Amendment's protections for freedom of speech and association, and freedom of the press." She emphasized that the order represents retaliatory discrimination against viewpoints that do not align with the president's own. The lawsuit accuses Trump of overstepping his authority by attempting to cut funds that have been appropriated by Congress, thus interfering with independent journalism. The complaint notes, the order targets NPR and PBS expressly because, in the president's view, their news and other content is not fair, accurate, or unbiased. Joining NPR in this legal challenge are Aspen Public Radio and KSUT, reflecting a collective commitment to uphold the principles of the First Amendment. The stations collectively stated, "Our mission and our responsibility is grounded in the First Amendment." They argue that the executive order poses an existential threat to public radio, which millions of Americans rely on for vital news and information. In defense of the order, White House spokesperson Harrison Fields argued that the president is exercising his lawful authority to limit funding to NPR and PBS. However, Patricia Harrison, president of CPB, countered this by asserting that CPB operates independently and is not subject to the president's authority. CPB has also initiated legal action against Trump regarding a previous directive to remove board members. The lawsuit highlights the historical context of the First Amendment, referencing a dissent by the late U.S. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, stating, "It is not always obvious when the government has acted with a retaliatory purpose in violation of the First Amendment. But this wolf comes as a wolf." This metaphor underscores the perceived threat posed by the executive order. The case has been assigned to U.S. District Judge Randolph Moss, who is also overseeing another case involving NPR and its member stations in relation to Trump's executive order. The order, which calls for an end to government funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, has been labeled by critics as an attempt to silence dissenting voices in the media. NPR and PBS have both stressed that the majority of federal funding they receive supports local stations that provide essential news and emergency alerts to their communities. The funding, which amounts to approximately $500 million annually, is appropriated by Congress and is integral to the operation of public broadcasting services across the nation. PBS has stated that it is considering all options, including potential legal action, to ensure it can continue to deliver essential programming and services to its member stations and the public. The differing profiles of the local stations involved in the lawsuit illustrate the diverse reach and impact of public media, from statewide broadcasts in Denver to local coverage in the Roaring Fork Valley and the Four Corners region. As the legal proceedings unfold, the implications of this case could have far-reaching consequences for public media funding and press freedom in the United States. The outcome will likely set a precedent for how government funding is allocated to public broadcasters and the extent to which the executive branch can influence independent journalism. The public radio stations involved have reiterated their commitment to the First Amendment, emphasizing the importance of maintaining editorial independence from government interference. This includes protection against government interference in our editorial decisions as well as in purchasing, acquiring, producing, and broadcasting information, they stated. As the nation watches this legal battle unfold, the stakes are high for public media and the principles of free speech and press that are foundational to American democracy. The case not only raises questions about funding and government authority, but also about the future of independent journalism in a polarized political landscape. The public will be looking closely at how this lawsuit progresses and what it means for the future of public broadcasting in the United States. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.